Swamp Thing New Roots heads to Sunderland Foods, which Swamp Thing infiltrates, taking out the armed guards with little trouble. One of the men tells his friend to lure the monster out, but he refuses to do so for a measly $12 an hour. Soon Swamp Thing returns, binding the men with his vines as one asks if he's a plant, man, or monster, which Alec says that he's all of the above as these giant vines rip the factory apart. Alex knows that this is just the beginning, since Sunderland Foods are all over Louisiana, growing their Terminus seed, which kills itself off so farmers have to buy more from Sunderland. Not only that, but the seed sterilizes all other plant life in the area, and once it gets out, there is no stopping it. As he burns the buildings, a man pleads with Swamp Thing not to kill him, but Alex says that he won't kill the man, since he isn't the root of the problem, he's just the branches, and soon people will come to find them if they are lucky, and they will be freed. Swamp Thing returns to his little swamp-side village he calls home, welcomed by the children and Fatima, whom Alec tells that Sunderland is making him angry thanks to all the poison it's creating, which in turn is making him toxic, and it's taking everything he can to make sure he doesn't kill anyone. Fatima knows the feeling, since being a voodoo priestess means she's surrounded by death, and has wasted years trying to beat it, but everyone who came to see her died anyway, so she came to accept death, since acceptance is the only way to not die while one still lives. Fatima tells Alec magic sees the world not how it is, but what it needs to be, but Alec doesn't think he could ever see it like that since he's a scientist and believes in science. Returning to his swamp, Alec thinks that Fatima is right about giving up and fighting death, since it's killing him, and to keep all of the anger and fear from ruining him, he has to squeeze it all into one place, his plant-based heart. When it gets full though, he simply rips it out and starts over, since it's the only way he can survive. At Sunderland's headquarters, the board learn of Swamp Thing destroying all of their labs and factories that grow the Terminus seed. Mr. Sunderland wants some suggestions on how to stop the being, and luckily an executive has an idea, since Swamp Thing is virtually indestructible as a plant-based being, so their R&D department think that they could capture Swamp Thing and take his DNA, which they could then use to breed a slave army of self-harvesting crops. Sunderland wonders how they could capture such a monster, and luckily they have developed a powerful neurotoxin that simulates death but leaves the victim unharmed. So once they give him the toxin, they can put him in an airtight container which they can then use to trap and extract the necessary DNA for their experiments, making Swamp Thing their intellectual property. Meanwhile, Swamp Thing attacks another Sunderland factory, where the guards think that they have killed him, wanting to celebrate with ice cream. Alec, however, rips into the grain silos while the men plead with their lives, but Alec tells them that he just wants to understand why they are guarding a seed that will destroy all plant life on Earth, and why is that worth protecting. The guard says that it's just a job, but Alec doesn't know why no one understands that like leaves on a tree, none of them exist in isolation, and if they are going to sell out each other, they should at least get a decent burial. Sunderland meanwhile asks how the toxin will be given to Swamp Thing, since he's always one step ahead of them, but the executive says that to capture someone like that, you don't send an enemy, you send a friend. In the swamp, Fatima arrives to keep Alec company, and Alec says that he's ashamed to have been human once, since they are all so corrupt and short-sighted. As Alec talks, Fatima injects him with the toxin, effectively killing Swamp Thing. She says that she is truly sorry since she didn't want to have to betray a friend, but she has spent her whole life looking for magic like his. But to get the key to the magic locked deep inside Alec Holland, she needs to make a deal. As she goes to put Alec in the container, she cuts out his heart, eating the beet and telling the dead hero that Sunderland can have his body, but she will have the magic kept in the heart. At Sunderland, the executive reveals that the wild beets that they've been finding in and around the swamps are unbelievably toxic, and a few bites will put the eater into a coma similar to death, which is how they were able to make the toxin that infected Swamp Thing. Fatima soon succumbs to the toxins after eating the heart, falling into a death-like coma as Alec wakes up, thinking that Sunderland found him and Fatima died protecting him. Later, the others bury Fatima in the container that was meant for him, but once buried, Fatima soon awakens as Alec leaves the cemetery, saying that he cannot hope to repay her sacrifice and he will not bury himself with hatred or become devoted to defeating death, since death takes everything you ever will have and it isolates you from everyone until no one can hear your screams. Swamp Thing New Roots was a wonderful little story diving into Alec's battle with the hate and anger he feels while battling the humans trying to control him and ruin ruin the green. I really like the idea that he has to bottle up all his hate and anger and fear into his heart, and he casts it off, and that hate and emotion ends up kind of saving him at the end in a way, but damning someone else in the process. Mark Russell kind of toned down his quick-witted political meta-commentary lots of his comics have in favor of some really fun plant-based puns and commenting on giant corporations trying to control the Earth's resources and the Earth in general. If I have one grievance with this book, it's that it kind of blows through the plot really quickly, glossing over some rather important parts. Like, I think a maybe deeper explanation on the heart and the neurotoxin might have helped a little bit more to explain what was all happening, but nonetheless it all came together in a really cool story, and I'm looking forward to the next issue. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.